You join me and my clan during the quarterfinal knockout stage of the World of Warships Ocean Cup competition, where some of the best teams in the world are competing. I'm going to share with you some of the most important principles and techniques that I use as a destroyer player, and also some tips and tricks you can pick up from watching super unicorns playing at the very highest level. If you're watching this video, you should already know the basics of what a destroyer player should be aiming to achieve. Recon, intelligence gathering, spotting, cap congestion and map control primarily are my goals. But this video is not going to go over the basics, we're going to try to go deeper than that. The first game we're going to look at is simple, but stick around for game 2, which has some fascinating nuances. Game start. In this competition there are 7 ships a side, which usually means there is a solo spawn, and unfortunately that is me. I say unfortunately because I'm in a Merca, which means I'm very slow, have poor detectability and have no sonar. My Merca is a long-range gunboat that is relatively ineffective if it doesn't have support. Enemy DDs I'm up against are going to be able to outspot me, outmaneuver me and potentially sonar trap me. This is not a good spot to spawn in. So at the gate I communicate with my teammate who's in a Plymouth, and he starts to make his way over to me to support. There's almost certainly an enemy DD spawned solo opposite me, so I proceed to slowly move towards the cap, allowing my teammate to catch up with me. The enemy DD has confidently moved into the cap and started to take control. There's little point picking a fight with the enemy ship who has advantages over me, so I begin to reverse into the cap. I'm reversing in anticipation of either being spotted or potentially radared by an as yet unseen enemy cruiser. It's also allowing my supporting cruiser time to catch up with me. My teammate in the cruiser is at this point unspotted. As I get closer to the cap, I'm spotted, and with the cap contested, I know exactly where the enemy DD is. An ideal scenario here would be for the enemy DD to open fire, allow my teammate and I to ambush him. I activate engine boost in anticipation of either having to avoid torps or gaining distance should an enemy support ship appear. As my detection bubble now covers the cap, we know exactly where the enemy DD is, so my teammate in the Plymouth radars and we initiate engagement. At this point we now know he has no support, or at least it has not arrived yet, so we push into the cap and take control. The key takeaway from this is that rushing to control caps is not a good tactic if you do not have full intel. The enemy Z-23 blundered in blind and paid the price. He had no support, and although he should have beaten me in a close range contest over the cap, he had no support and had no clue that I had a stealth cruiser supporting me. If we pop over to the A-cap, we see Jag and his Ochi finishing off an enemy Baltimore as the rest of their team collapses like dominoes. A simple win in the end, with the takeaway being the importance of patience and only engaging in fights you know you can win. If I was a Z-23 captain, I would be asking serious questions about why he was left alone and isolated on the A-cap. The lack of coordination and poor positioning cost them. On to the second match, which is much more interesting. I select a Fantask, which is one of my favourite boats, and I have thousands of games in it. The map is Scandinavia, which is the largest map in the game and perfectly suits the speed of my French DD. In the previous game we spoke about the mistakes the enemy Z-23 made, and you might be wondering if I am making the same errors as I overextend while skipping the cap. But what I'm doing here is utilising my speed and the enemy team's own twist and track to start building a picture about their positioning. At this point I know I'm still on their twist, and knowing my teammates are not, I can reverse triangulate and work out at least one enemy ship with twist is in this area, almost certainly coming wide in an effort to intercept me. Now what I don't know is that there are actually 3 ships here, 2 radar capable and very close to me. I cut inside knowing that my speed will allow me to leave the enemy ships or ships in my wake, and I head towards my teammates who are as yet undetected and not located on twist and track. I'm doing this for 2 reasons. Firstly, to draw whatever enemy ships are here into an ambush, but also to reverse triangulate the enemy ship's position. At this point I lose twist and my teammate picks it up. we now know exactly where one of their ships are, which is a lot more information than they have about us, despite them being the ones using twist and track. This is the reason I rarely run twist. Good players will use it against you. And while we begin to position to ambush the enemy DD or DDs, the enemy battleship has no idea that I am within torpedo range, probably because his teammates have communicated with him that my Fantask is wide on the flank, so he doesn't believe there is a danger. We'll launch torps and head back. Even if the torps miss, which they won't, but what it will do is trigger the battleship to communicate with his teammate that I'm near him, which I'm not going to be for long, as Chip activates his radar on his Plymouth and we see there are 2 enemy DDs and a dangerous P-bag on the cap. As I move into position here, I'm not firing because there is a risk that the Anult behind me will spot me. I want to remain dark so I have the element of surprise as I move in to ambush the enemy DDs who believe they are in a stronger position than they really are. With the enemy DD giving away his position in the smoke, I send torpedoes. I actually don't believe I'm going to hit him. He's at lightning and will likely be running sonar, but my torps are going out of his smoke, and by the time that happens I'll be close enough to eliminate him and hopefully the black with my guns. Unfortunately, my plan doesn't quite work out as I'm radared here, which forces me to abort and go defensive. I've lost the element of surprise, but the enemy team will now be in a bit of a panic as their smokes are used up, their sonar's running out, and their supporting cruiser's radar has been burnt. Also worth noting here, I lose location. And what this means is I'm able to reverse triangulate, but perhaps more importantly, it likely means the enemy now believe I've gone clockwise around the island to join up with my teammates. Their twist is potentially giving them false confidence. Now, I suspect at this point an enemy DD is still in the smoke as I am reverse triangulating twist and track, so I use the same plan. Send torps in an effort to force the DD out and then engage at close range. And here we go, the black is forced out and guns are hot. Black down, and the lightning soon follows. I think when the enemy team looks back, they're going to believe they had a strong position going into this. 2 radars, sonar and smoke, and dug-in cruiser with lots of firepower. But what they didn't have was intel, and they were static and very predictable. In fact, they likely had worse than that. They thought I was somewhere else to where I actually was, and what they believed was solid intel was telling me more about them than it was giving them. And their dug-in positions in the smoke with their twist and track giving them away, well, it was honestly a bit like shooting fish in a barrel. The P-bag is now easy work, and with the rest of PA1Ns dealing with the other flag, victory is secured and we're through to the semi-finals of Ocean Cup.